Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah, dear students at Faculty of Commerce English section. Today we will talk about economic problem. In economic problem we have unlimited wants and scarcity of resources. Scarcity of resources like land, labor, or capital. And we have an economic problem how we should use our resources, and we have different choices in economic problem. So in economic problem we ask ourselves some questions. First question, what goods and services should an economy produce? What should we produce? Should we produce agriculture or manufacturing or services? Should be on sport or leisure or housing? So first question is what goods and services should an economy produce? Second question is how should goods and services be produced? How should we produce goods and services? Should we produce it labor intensive, land intensive, capital intensive? And what about efficiency? All of these are economic questions about economic problem. Who should get the goods and services produced when we distribute our goods and services? Should we give them to the poor or to the rich? Should we give them to the people who are working hard, or we are not working, or we are unemployed? So first we speak about opportunity cost, and an opportunity cost we have the definition that it's the cost expressed in the terms of the next best alternative sacrificed. Helps us view the true cost of decision making. Implies valuing different choices. So we have different choices. If we choose some alternative, we give up the other alternatives. So that's the definition of opportunity cost. So opportunity cost helps us view the true cost of decision making, and the opportunity cost it's considered one of the economic costs. It's considered one of the economic costs. When we have the difference between economic and accounting costs, opportunity cost is one of the main difference, because we have in economic costs we have explicit cost and implicit cost. That means we have opportunity cost, but accounting cost it's interested in the costs that happened already. So when we speak about production possibility frontier or the PPF, production possibility frontier is one of the economic and one of the most important economic models, because it shows us the different combination of goods and services. It shows us different combinations of goods and services that can be produced with a given amount of resources. And there is no ideal point on the curve. When we have production possibility frontier last year, we studied that it shows us the different combination of goods and services that we can produce. So it's one of the main things, and its slope is the opportunity cost. So opportunity cost is the slope of PPF or the production possibility frontier. And when we talk about the PPF, we had that PPF doesn't have an ideal point. So all the points that's in the PPF, it's efficient points. So any point inside the curve suggests resources are not being utilized efficiently. So these points were inefficient points. But the points outside the PPF are the unattainable points. So these are unattainable points. we have this called attainable or efficient. These are inefficient points. And last points we have is the efficient points. And efficient points, there is no ideal point, there is no best point, but all the points in the curve shows us an efficient combinations of goods X and Y. So we speak about PPF, we should know that any point outside the curve is not attainable with the current level of resources. So with our current level of resources, we can't attain these points with this amount of resources. But we can attain these points when we have more resources. So PPF is useful to demonstrate economic growth and opportunity cost. So PPF is very important to demonstrate economic growth and opportunity cost. Production possibility frontier, when we have the PPF or the production possibility frontier. Production possibility frontier shows us two goods. If we have assumption that a country producing only two goods, that is capital goods and consumer goods, so we are assuming that a country can produce two types of goods with its resources, and these resources can produce capital goods and consumer goods. So we are allocate our resources between producing these two goods. So we draw a PPF, and PPF has a slope, and its slope it's the opportunity cost. So this point this point shows us what maximum of capital goods can we produce if we produce zero consumer goods, and this point shows us the maximum amount of consumer goods that we can produce if we have zero capital goods produced. So we have a location that is moving around the PPF from A to B. So A has a different combination of capital goods and consumer goods more than B. B have another different combination of capital goods and consumer goods. So opportunity cost of producing an extra X0 to X1 from X0 to X1 is Y0, Y1. So if I want to increase our production from consumer goods to the level of X1, we will reduce our production from capital goods from Y0 to Y1. So the country is at point A on the PPF. It can produce a combination of Y0 capital goods and X0 consumer goods. If we move to point B, we have different combination. We know that that is the maximum amount of consumer goods, and this is the maximum amount of capital goods. So when we have a shift, an outward shift, shows us expansion of using resources or improving the productivity of these resources. This will push the PPF further outward. Production inside the PPF, it's not efficient, it's not using all these resources. So we have old PPF and the new PPF. So the points on the old PPF are considered inefficient points because we have new level of efficiency. And we have points inside the curve that shows us inefficient, and the points on the new curve shows us efficient points, and the point outside the curve shows us unattainable points. So we have an important definition. It's called an economic model. An economic model helps us to predict how a consumer can react to changes in price level. So economic model, can we show an economic model in a figure or in illustration or in a table? So all of these considered as economic model. So when we have different levels of prices from 30 to 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, quantity demanded as price falls, quantity demanded increases. As price falls, quantity supplied falls, and we have a surplus or a shortage. And we have an important equation that shows us surplus or shortage equals QS minus QD. So if this formula shows us a positive, it's equal surplus. If it's negative, it shows us not a surplus, it's called shortage. Shortage. So we have a surplus and we have a shortage. Surplus is when this amount is positive, is when quantity supplied is larger than quantity demanded. Negative is when quantity demanded is larger than quantity supplied, and it's showing us on this figure. So as we shown, the level of equilibrium is when surplus and shortage is to equal 0. That's when quantity demanded equal quantity supplied on a specific price. So an economic model is a set of assumptions that can be listed in a table, illustrated with a graph, or even stated algebraically to help analyze the behavior and predict outcomes. So we use an economic model in order to analyze and predict, analyze the data and predict the outcomes. A complete model of the market will allow us to analyze how the interaction of buyers and sellers results in a price that's agreeable to all. So that is the price that's agreeable to all. In a market equilibrium, and the market equilibrium, we have it in a competitive market. The adjustment process moves toward market equilibrium is a situation in which prices are relatively stable and the quantity of goods served supplied is equal to the quantity demanded. So when we have quantity demanded equal to quantity supplied, so when we have economic equilibrium or market equilibrium is when quantity demanded equal quantity supplied. So in market equilibrium, we have quantity demanded equal quantity supplied on a specific price that is 15. So in this figure, our equilibrium is to equal 15. So our equilibrium is to equal 15. So as we shown here, our equilibrium is 15 when we have price of 15 and the quantity as 6 units. That showed us a surplus or shortage is to equal 0. So we have the definition of surplus, and we know that surplus is a situation in which the quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded at a given price. And surplus shows us unsold products. That's due to quantity supplied is larger than quantity demanded, so we have inventory, so we have space in suppliers' warehouses. Sellers now know that their price is too high, and they know that they have to lower their price if they want to attract more buyers and dispose of the surplus. So if I want to get rid of this surplus, I should lower the price. So lowering the price will help me to get rid of the surplus. So here we have a surplus. That's when the price is 25. So we are higher than the equilibrium price. We have quantity supplied of 11 and we have quantity demanded of 1. So we have a surplus of 10 units and a shortage. A shortage is an important definition that is a situation in which quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied at a given price. So when a shortage happens, producers have no more products to sell and they end the way wishing they had charged higher prices for their products. So when we have a shortage, that means the price is too low, and when the price is too low, we have quantity demanded larger than quantity supplied. We have here quantity demanded that is larger than quantity supplied. We have a shortage of 7 units. So we have consumers who are searching for 7 units to consume, but they can't find it because the supply is only 3 units. So prices get up. So in order to get rid of shortage, we have higher prices. In order to get rid of surplus, we have lower prices. So equilibrium price, and we have important definition for equilibrium price. It's a price that clears the market by leaving neither a surplus nor a shortage at the end of the trading period. So at the end of the trading period, we have no longer a surplus or a shortage. That when we have an equilibrium price. While our economic model of the market cannot show exactly how long it will take to reach equilibrium, equilibrium will be reached because of the pressure that temporary surpluses and shortages put on prices. So when we have here a price that is lower than equilibrium, we have a pressure that helps us. So this pressure helps us to get back to the equilibrium, and we will have higher prices. We will have higher prices. We have a pressure that help us to get to the equilibrium point again. So equilibrium is an economic state when we have no surplus and no shortage, and we have a price that is agreed by the buyer and seller. So if the price is too low, we have a shortage. If the price is too high, we have a surplus. And neither in the two cases, we will have a force that help us to reach equilibrium. And all of that is the normal cases. So that is the normal cases of the market. We don't have a government intervention, and we have a competitive price theory. Competitive price theories show us the normal goods that we can consume in a market, like food, milk, flour, bread, and all of these goods, which mean We have a competitive market. We have a higher number of buyers and sellers. And we have sellers that compete to meet consumer demands, and they are forced to lower the price of their goods, which in turn encourages them to keep the costs down. Government interference or government intervention. We have in some cases a government that should have take steps to control prices. These interventions appear as price ceiling and price floor. We have a short part on the price ceiling and price floor. We have an important sessions that we will discuss price ceiling and price floor. So price ceiling is a maximum legal price. So we have to look at that maximum legal price. So the maximum legal price is price ceiling. We'll have an example, and the most important example we will take, it's about rent in housing market. So at some times the government should take part in the market to put a price ceiling for the rent prices in order to offer more for the consumers, because producers or the house holders or the house owner, he wants to charge more for his real estate. So in order to protect the consumer, we put a maximum legal price, a maximum legal price. So without the price ceiling, without putting a maximum legal price, market establish monthly rents at 900. So we have a monthly rents at 900. When we put a price ceiling and put a maximum legal price in order to protect the consumer, we don't charge 1,200, we charge 600. It's called price ceiling, سقف السعر, but we put the price ceiling under equilibrium. So سقف السعر or price ceiling under equilibrium. So here when you put a price ceiling of 600, house owners decrease their quantity from 2 million to 1 million point 6 due to, because we have an ownership, we have an apartment. This apartment needs to have decoration, we need to fix it. So all of that charge costs. So suppliers doesn't have an incentive to supply more, they supply less in order to meet the maximum legal price, and consumers as normal, they want more of these goods that have a lower price. So we have a shortage here, and a shortage we can calculate it from minus 1.6 from 2.4, which make it about 800,000 units. That's a shortage. So price ceiling, we put a price ceiling to protect the consumer. Price ceiling has a social goals. A social goals of equity, security for people who cannot afford these rents. They can establish arbitrarily a price ceiling at 600. So that's a price ceiling, and demand for apartments would increase. Landlords, on the other hand, would try to convert some apartments to other users, leaving a shortage of 800. So this area, we can call it a deadweight loss. A deadweight loss because suppliers could supply 300,000, and we have in the equilibrium point, we have an equilibrium quantity of 2 million, and because the price decreases, we have less amount of quantity, so we have a shortage. So this area, it's called underproduction. For price floor, we have a price floor that's called a minimum legal price, and one of the more important examples of price floor is the minimum wage. A minimum wage for the labor force. If we have, for example, an equilibrium wage of $4 per hour, and we have a minimum wage, we have a price floor of 5.15. So putting a price floor, we have price floor that is larger, that is above of the equilibrium, not of below the equilibrium. So price floor is above equilibrium, and at this wage, the supply curve shows that 14 million people want to offer these services. This is the quantity, and the firm or business sector require only 10 million because we have increasing costs, and the business owner want to hold their costs low. So we put a price floor, and the price floor leads to unemployment, a surplus in labor market is called unemployment. So price floor, according to the demand curve for labor, will leave only 4 million surplus, which will have an unemployment for 4 million workers. So we have a quick comparison between price ceiling and price floor. Price ceiling, it's a maximum price that can be legally charged for a good. Price floor, it's a minimum price set by the government that must be paid for a good or a services. And we have an important example for price ceiling. It's the rent control, a situation where the government sets a maximum amount that can be charged for rent in an area. And the minimum wage, it's a minimum price that an employer can pay a worker for an hour. And we have also price floor for luxury or sin taxes like alcohol, cigarettes, and gasoline. All of these are examples of price floor and price ceiling in the large cities, which we have a very high prices for rent. We have a price ceiling that is put by the government. So we can say that price ceiling and the price floor are good intentions, but with ungood results. We have problems with price floor and ceiling that we prevent the market from reaching equilibrium. We prevent supplier from producing as much as price decays, or prevent consumer from buying as much as they wish. So for rent control, prevent landlord from getting full value for their property, and for cigarette tax, prevent people from buying cigarettes, hopefully reducing the number of smokers. So we have problem with price floor and ceiling. Price floor and price ceiling prevent the market from reaching equilibrium, prevent suppliers from producing as much as price dictates, and prevent consumer from buying as much as they wish. In case of the bad goods, it may be helpful because the country have taxes on cigarettes, which will help for projects. So that was an important part about economic problem and the differences between price ceiling and price floor. In next sessions, we will have more deep in price ceiling and price floor and show us how they can benefit us or how they are harmful for the market. Thanks for your attention. See you in the next section.